Because of the modernization plan, with all steam engines being taken out of service and scrapped, the island of sooooo, the engines don't have to worry about it. The engines know that Sir Topham Hatt would never do such a thing as scrapping them. Samson, who was an old industrial engine, carried scrap to and from sooooo. One day, Samson wasn't feeling good. "Well, Samson," said Sir Topham Hatt, "looks like you'll be going to Crowin's Gate." "Oh, but sir," moaned Samson, "what about the scrap train tonight?" "Don't worry," continued Sir Topham Hatt. "I will find another engine at once." However, the only engine available was Edward. After Edward and his crew had been informed, Edward got ready for his late-night scrap run to the mainland. Both Edward and his crew felt a bit uneasy. The scrapyard was a place where old locomotives would be cut up, and if the scrappers didn't think clearly, they would mistake Edward for an engine who was supposed to be scrapped. They soon arrived at the scrapyard. His driver uncoupled him from the train, and Edward went across the points and was just about to leave the scrapyard. The yard foreman ran over to them. "I'm sorry, but the points are jammed." "Well, great," sighed Edward's fireman. "Well, should have expected this coming." Before they could say anything else, two men jumped into the cab and shoved Edward's crew off the footplate. "Oh, bloody hell, what are you doing?" cried Edward. "Well," one of the men began, "you'll make very fine scrap indeed, old iron." Edward tried with all his might to take control, but it was no use. The two men drove him into a siding. They then walked away. Edward was all alone and worried, but he tried to keep a stern face. Everywhere he looked, though, he could see the remains of locomotives. Footsteps were heard in the distance. Edward smiled. He thought it was his crew. Instead, they were 4 men. Each of them had a scrapper's torch in their hand. Once again, Edward put up a stern face. "What do you think you're doing?" asked Edward. "What does it look like? Are you blind?" said one of the men. "It's time for you to be turned into some useful scrap iron." Edward wanted to move, but he was trapped by the buffers and the 4 men in front of him on the rails. One by one, they lit their torches. Edward was so horrified, he didn't know what to say or do. Suddenly, Edward heard something. He knew that sound, the sound of a steam engine. Eagle pulled in right in front of him and the men. Sir Topham Hatt stepped out of Eagle's cab. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. The 4 men stuttered. They didn't know what to say. Then, Edward's crew stepped out of Eagle's cab. "You shouldn't. I'll shove this out of our engine," said Edward's driver. "Thankfully, I was with Eagle when I got the call from Edward's crew. I'm letting you off with a warning," he said to the scrappers. "If you do this to one of my engines again, you will be sorry." With that, Eagle coupled up to Edward and Edward's crew got into Edward's cab. And then they puffed away back home to sooooo.